The wagon came in slow through the heat shimmer, wheels squealing against the dry earth, horses blowing steam through their nostrils. Eli McGraw stood alone beside the post rail, hat low, thumb hooked in his belt, the sun bleeding out behind him. Dust stung his eyes, and he narrowed them at the figure sitting stiff on the wagon bench. When it stopped, the driver climbed down first. Thin man, sweat darkening his collar. He tipped his hat. Delivery from St. Louis. Mail order arrangement, I'm told. The woman on the bench hesitated before climbing down. Her hands trembled as she gathered her skirt. The moment her boots hit the dirt, Eli felt something wrong. She wasn't the woman from the photograph. He had memorized that picture for months. The soft curls, the shy smile. This woman had neither. Her face was pale from travel and fear, her eyes darker, sharper. She clutched a worn satchel to her chest like it was the last thing keeping her upright. "You're Mr. McGraw?" she asked, voice small but steady. Eli gave a slow nod. "I am. You be Miss Hartwell, then?" A pause, the kind that makes wind louder. "Yes, but," she swallowed hard, "I'm Lydia Hartwell. My sister, Caroline, she didn't make it." The driver shifted uncomfortably, muttered something about the heat, and tipped his hat again before leading the horses away. The wagon creaked off, leaving nothing but settling dust and the sound of wind tugging at the woman's skirts. Eli blinked once, slow. "Didn't make it?" Lydia's eyes dropped to the ground. "Fever took her on the trail. She asked me to come on, to tell you myself. I didn't want the agreement to go unpaid." Eli's jaw tightened. The sound of the windmill's slow creak filled the silence between them. A hawk circled overhead, its shadow cutting across the ground like a blade. He finally said, "You'd better come inside. Sun's got bite enough to skin us both." She followed him up the path to the ranch house. The place was all rough timber and silence, walls that hadn't heard laughter in years. A saddle sat on the table, a half-mended strap beside it. She looked around like she was stepping into someone's past. He poured her a glass of water from the pitcher. She drank it slow, both hands shaking around the rim. "Where you headed after this?" he asked. "I don't know." Her voice cracked. "I thought maybe you'd let me stay. Just a little while. Until I find work." Eli said nothing. He studied her face, the way her gaze never quite met his, the quick flinch when the wind slammed the shutters. She wasn't lying, not exactly, but there was a shadow in her words. "I ain't looking for a housemaid," he said finally. "I'm not asking for charity." Her chin lifted, eyes sparking like flint. "I can work. I can cook, mend, ride, shoot if need be." That last word hung between them. "Shoot." Eli leaned back, slow. "Shoot, you say?" She looked down again, fingers tightening around her satchel. "My father taught us both. Before he passed." Outside, a loose shutter banged once in the wind. Eli's eyes drifted toward the sound, then back to her. The sunset light cut across her face, half gold, half shadow. "Room upstairs," he said after a long silence. "You can stay the night. We'll talk come morning." She nodded, murmured thanks, and climbed the narrow staircase, her boots barely making a sound. Eli watched her go. When she disappeared from sight, he turned toward the window and poured himself a shot of whiskey from the bottle by the sink. The horizon burned red, the color of blood and memory. He'd written Caroline Hartwell letters all winter, long, careful words about soil, storms, and silence. A man couldn't survive too long without a voice answering back. The woman who'd stepped off that wagon carried his name's weight now, whether she meant to or not. A floorboard creaked above. The sound was light, deliberate. He looked up, hand still on glass. For a long while, nothing but wind. Then, faintly, the sound of something metallic. A click. He moved quiet to the foot of the stairs, listening. No movement followed, only the restless groan of wood in the night. After a moment, he returned to his chair, every sense awake. Later, when darkness swallowed the last ember of daylight, he stepped onto the porch. The prairie stretched endless under a white slice of moon. Coyotes yipped far off, their voices rising and fading. In the upstairs window, a single candle flickered. He could see her silhouette, still, watching the land like she was measuring it for danger. He took a slow pull from his whiskey. "You ain't who I was waiting for," he muttered under his breath. The wind answered, whispering through the sagebrush. Inside, the boards creaked again. He turned just in time to see her standing in the doorway, barefoot, holding a folded letter in one hand. Her hair was down now, wild and untamed, shadows dancing across her face. "This was hers," she said softly, holding out the letter. "My sister wrote it before she died. She wanted you to know she was sorry for not making it. She said you were kind." Eli took the letter without a word. The paper was wrinkled, the ink blurred where tears had fallen. "She also said," Lydia's voice wavered, "said you deserve someone honest. That's why I came." Eli studied her, the firelight catching the edge of her eyes too steady for a woman who'd just lost everything. "You're telling me the truth now?" he asked. "Yes." "Then you can stay. But understand something, Miss Hartwell. Truth's a hard thing to keep out here. Dust gets in every crack." She gave a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So does blood." For a heartbeat, neither moved. The house seemed to hold its breath. Then she turned and climbed the stairs again, candlelight trailing behind her like a ghost. Eli sat alone at the table, staring at the letter. Outside, thunder grumbled low, miles away but coming closer. He set the letter down and looked out the window toward the moonlit plain. Somewhere beyond that horizon, something dark was riding their way. And up in that little room above him, a stranger with his bride's name was waiting in silence, like a shadow that had finally found its place. The storyteller's voice fades in like the crackle of a campfire. That night, Redwater held its breath. Folks still say the wind carried two names across the prairie, one buried, and one that hadn't yet learned what it meant to be found. The ropes snapped tight as the calf kicked and bellowed, dust flying in a gold haze around the corral. Eli held firm, boots dug deep, muscles straining. Across the yard, Lydia moved fast, calm as a whisper, looping the branding iron from the coals without flinching. The iron hissed when it met the hide, the calf jerking once before stilling. Eli watched her a long moment, the way her sleeves rolled high, the way she didn't shy from heat or noise. He'd seen ranch hands come and go who didn't carry half her grit. When it was done, she stepped back, brushing dust from her skirt. "That makes 6 heads," she said. "I'll finish the rest before supper." He grunted approval, but his eyes never left her face. There was something different about her that morning, something that didn't fit the story she'd told. The wind carried the smell of iron and sage. Far off, a hawk screamed. "Rides like she's born to it," said Joe Tanner, the hired man, leaning on the fence. "Ain't seen a woman handle stock like that since the war." He spat into the dirt. "Sure she ain't hiding something, boss?" Eli didn't answer. Joe smirked. "Word in town is, she ain't the woman you ordered. Folks at the saloon been talking. Say you got yourself a ghost instead of a bride." Eli's jaw worked. "Tell him to mind their own." Joe shrugged and wandered off toward the barn, his whistle low and mean. Lydia glanced toward Eli, reading the weight in his silence. "I can go, if my being here causes trouble." "You're working. That's more than most." She nodded, but her eyes were distant, like she was looking for something that wasn't there. That evening, the sky bled purple and red as they rode the fence line. Lydia's mare trotted easy beside his. The prairie stretched endless, grass whispering against the wind. She carried a rifle across her saddle, not for show, but with the ease of someone who'd used one before. When a coyote bolted from the brush, she turned and fired in one motion. The shot cracked the silence clean in half. The animal dropped 50 yards out. Eli slowed his horse, studying her. "Pretty clean shot." She shrugged. "Guess I remember a few things." "Your pa teach you that, too?" Her lips parted, then closed again. "Something like that." They rode on without another word, the thunder of hooves fading into the hum of crickets. That night, when the lamps burned low, Eli saddled up and rode to town. The saloon was near empty, save for the piano player and a few drunks too stubborn to quit. He ordered whiskey and leaned on the counter, eyes scanning the wall behind the bar. That's when he saw it, a wanted poster nailed crooked between two others. The drawing was rough, but the name hit him square in the chest. Caroline Hartwell, wanted for robbery and aiding the Hartwell gang. His hand went still on the glass. The face was close enough to Lydia's to chill the blood. Same eyes, same mouth. The barkeep noticed his stare. Them Hartwells cause hell near Abilene. Gang split after a bank job went south. Feds still want what's left of him. Eli took a slow breath. She's dead, ain't she? Caroline? Word says she was. Though some say one of them lived. Her sister, maybe. Traveled west under another name. Eli left his drink untouched. The piano kept playing as he stepped out into the cold night air. The road home was long, moonlight sharp as bone on the prairie. He rode hard, wind biting at his collar, thoughts twisting. When he reached the ranch, the house was dark, except for the faint glow of a lamp upstairs. He dismounted, boots crunching on gravel. The door creaked when he pushed it open. Lydia stood at the table, cleaning her revolver. Her eyes lifted slow to meet his. "You been to town?" she said. Not a question. He set his hat down. "I saw something. A name." She looked down at the gun, then back at him. "Caroline Hartwell." He nodded. Her hand trembled once, then steadied. "That was her. My sister. She wasn't what you thought she was. You said fever took her." "It did. But not before she told me what she'd done." Lydia's voice cracked, then hardened. "She rode with men who robbed, hurt, killed. She wanted out, but you don't walk away from the Hartwell gang. Not alive." Eli folded his arms, eyes unreadable. "And you?" "I ran. Took her name, caused minds cursed in the same circles. Figured I could start over somewhere nobody knew me. You fooled me." She met his gaze without flinching. "I never meant to." The silence between them was thick, heavy as storm air. Finally, Eli spoke. "You're safe here for now. But if what you're running from comes knocking, I aim to know it before they're on my land." Her throat worked as she nodded. "They won't stop. Cole Banner's the one who ran the gang. He won't rest till he finds me." The name hung in the room like smoke. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere over the horizon. The lamp flickered, throwing long shadows against the wall. Eli moved closer, slow and deliberate. "You got any proof of what you're saying?" She reached into her satchel and pulled out a folded piece of parchment. A newspaper clipping, yellowed and worn. The headline read, "Stagecoach robbery near Abilene. Hartwell gang suspected." Underneath was a sketch of a young woman with her sister's face. Lydia's eyes glistened in the lamplight. "That was the night my father died. They said it was a stray bullet. I saw who fired it. Cole Banner. My sister joined them after that. Thought she could make it right. She didn't." Eli stared at her a long while. Finally, he said quietly, "You're not like her." "I hope not." He nodded once, slow. "Then we'll keep watch together." The wind picked up, rattling the window panes. Somewhere in the distance, a lone rider passed along the ridge, moonlight glinting off metal. Lydia saw it too. "They've found me," she whispered. Eli reached for his rifle. "Then it's time to let the prairie know who's standing here." The storyteller's voice rose like a whisper through the dark. That night, the ranch at Redwater went quiet. Only the wind knew what shadows were riding across that endless land and who they were coming for. Rain struck the roof in hard, uneven bursts, drumming like a war beat. The sky outside burned with lightning. Eli stood at the window, rifle in hand, watching the horizon pulse white and black again. Between flashes, he saw the shapes of riders on the ridge, 5 of them, dark and still against the storm. "They're here," he said. Lydia's hand froze on the lantern wick. The light shuddered once, throwing shadows across her face. "Cole Banner." Eli's jaw tightened. "You sure?" Her eyes never left the window. "I'd know that horse anywhere." Thunder rolled low, shaking the panes. The smell of rain and gun oil filled the air. 5 men, Eli murmured, all armed. "They'll wait for the rain to cover their approach." "I won't run again," she said, voice steady. "Never asked you to." She turned to him then, the flicker of the lamp dancing in her eyes. "If they take me, they'll kill anyone who stands in their way. You don't owe me this fight." He checked the chamber of his rifle, the click sharp in the silence. "Maybe not, but they rode into my land. That makes it my fight." Lightning tore the sky apart, revealing the riders moving closer, slow, deliberate. The wind howled through the cracks of the window frame. Lydia moved to the table, laid out the revolver, the spare cartridges, the knife. Her fingers were sure, practiced. Eli caught the motion, the confidence. "You said your father taught you," he said quietly. "That the truth?" She met his gaze. "No, I learned from them. From the men I was hunting." He didn't ask more. The storm outside spoke loud enough. Rain turned to hail, pelting the tin roof like thrown stones. The horses in the corral screamed and kicked. The windmill spun wild, its creak lost in the roar of thunder. Lydia moved to the door, peering into the dark. "They'll come from the south side, down by the creek. Less open ground." Eli nodded. "I'll cover the front. You take the back window." They split without another word, the kind of silence that only happens between two people who understand what comes next might end them both. The first shot cracked through the storm. Glass shattered beside Lydia's head, a bullet burying itself in the wall. She dropped low, rolled, and fired back. The muzzle flash lit her face like a flash of fire. Eli returned fire from the porch, his rifle booming through the thunder. He saw one of the riders fall, tumbling into the mud, his hat spinning away. The others spread wide, their shadows merging with the storm. To the left, Lydia shouted, "I see him." The rain thickened, turning the ground to black sludge. Eli moved from the porch to the trough, firing through sheets of rain. The lightning showed brief glimpses, the flash of Colt barrels, the flare of a cigarette, the glint of a knife. A voice carried through the downpour, low and cold. "Lydia, come on out now. Ain't no need for all this." "Cole Banner." Lydia froze for half a second, her hand tightening on the revolver. "You should have stayed dead, Cole," she shouted back. His laugh came rough and close. "You always had fire, girl. Shame your sister didn't. You think this farmer's going to save you." Eli leaned from the corner of the porch, sighted through the rain, and fired. The bullet struck the post beside Cole, splintering wood. Cole ducked and cursed. The fight raged on, flashes of gunfire like lightning answering lightning. One of the riders made it close, too close. He crashed through the side door, shotgun raised. Lydia spun, fired twice, the man falling hard against the table, knocking the lamp to the floor. Flames licked up instantly, catching on the spilled oil. "Eli," she called. He burst through the doorway, rainwater running off his coat. One look at the spreading fire, and he grabbed the bucket by the stove, throwing water over the flames. Smoke filled the room, choking thick. "Out the back," he barked. They stumbled into the storm, coughing, soaked to the bone. The air outside was chaos, mud, thunder, and flashes of death. Cole's men were closing in. Eli dropped one with a clean shot through the chest. Another lunge from behind trough. Lydia swung the butt of her revolver, cracking his jaw before firing point blank. Now only two remained, Cole and the last man, his rifle aimed from the ridge. A bullet whined past Eli's ear, close enough to feel the heat. "Down!" Lydia shouted, grabbing him by the arm and pulling him behind a wagon. Another shot tore through the wheel. The rain softened for a heartbeat, a breath in the middle of madness. Eli looked at her, mud-streaked, soaked, fierce as any gunslinger he'd known. "You said you infiltrated them," he said, voice rough. "That true?" She nodded once. "My father was sheriff of Abilene. They killed him. I joined him to get close to the man who pulled the trigger." "Banner." "Yeah." Thunder cracked again, closer now. Eli reloaded, fingers numb. "Then let's end it." They split. Eli circling left toward the barn. Lydia crawling through the wet grass toward the creek. The wind screamed through the open plain, carrying the smell of gunpowder and rain. Cole's voice came again, closer. "Ain't no use hiding. You were never one of us, Lydia. You think this little act'll wash the blood off." She rose from the grass, face lit by lightning, revolver leveled. "No, Cole, but I'll make sure you pay for it." He turned, eyes wide, but Eli's shot came first, clean through the shoulder. Cole staggered, screamed, then fired wild. The bullet grazed Eli's arm, spinning him to the mud. Lydia didn't hesitate. She fired once, the shot echoing across the storm. Cole's gun flew from his hand, spinning into the creek. He dropped to his knees, clutching his arm. "You ain't got the nerve," he spat. "You're just like her. Weak." Lydia walked forward through the rain, the revolver unwavering. No, I'm the one who learned. For a long heartbeat, the storm held still. Then she fired again, this time into the dirt beside his hand. You'll hang, she said. That's justice. Eli rose slowly, breathing hard, the rain washing blood from his sleeve. He watched her lower the gun, watched the firelight from the house flicker behind her. Cole Banner lay in the mud, beaten, the storm breaking apart above him. Eli stepped close, resting a hand on her shoulder. It's done. Lydia's eyes lifted to the horizon, where dawn's first gray light pushed through the clouds. No, she whispered. It's only started. The storyteller's voice crackled like fading embers. When the storm broke over Redwater, the land was never the same again. Some say the thunder that night carried the sound of a woman's vengeance, cold, steady, and righteous as the rain that washed her past clean. Smoke hung low across the ranch yard, thick and bitter from the fire still dying in the house. Rain hissed against the embers. The world smelled of gunpowder, wet earth, and blood. Eli knelt beside the porch, pressing a strip of torn cloth against his arm. The wound had stopped bleeding, but the ache went deep, bone deep. The storm had passed, but silence carried its own kind of weight. Lydia stood a few yards away, the revolver loose in her hand. Her braid was soaked through, her dress caked in mud. Cole Banner lay at her feet, bound with rope, his breath coming ragged and slow. You should have finished it, Eli said, voice rough. She didn't look at him. Killing him wouldn't end it. The law will. Eli spat into the mud. Law's a long way from here. I'll take him myself. Lightning flashed again in the distance, weak, tired. The storm was crawling off east, leaving behind a sky bruised and pale. Eli rose to his feet, wincing. You think they'll listen to a woman wanted under her sister's name? She turned to him then, eyes hollow but steady. They'll listen to the truth. He studied her, saying nothing. Behind her, the prairie stretched endless, mist curling over the grass. The rain made everything glisten, beautiful and broken at the same time. Banner coughed, spitting blood. Ain't no truth gonna save you, Lydia, he rasped. You're one of us. Always were. Lydia knelt, grabbed his collar, and pulled him close. I was never yours. Her voice was quiet but sharp enough to cut glass. She shoved him back down, the mud swallowing the sound of impact. From the ridge, faint hoofbeats echoed, slow, steady, coming closer. Eli's eyes narrowed. More of him. No, Lydia said after a beat. That's the sheriff's horse. I sent a rider before the storm hit. Told him what was coming. Eli looked at her, surprised. You planned all this? I planned to stop running. The horse emerged from the mist, Sheriff Dunn, a broad man with gray whiskers and a cold stare. Two deputies followed, rifles slung across their backs. They took in the scene, the dead men sprawled in the mud, the burned-out house, the bound outlaw. God almighty, the sheriff muttered. Heard tell the Hartwell gang was finished years ago. Now they are, Lydia said. Dunn dismounted, squinting at her face. You're one of them, ain't you? The younger sister? She nodded once. I was never part of their crimes. My sister tried to stop them and died for it. I am to finish what she started. The sheriff's gaze moved to Eli. That true. Eli met his eyes without flinching. She saved my life tonight. Saved the whole damn town, you asked me. Dunn looked between them, then nodded toward Banner. We'll take him in. Court will decide the rest. Banner's laughter broke the stillness. Low, cruel, but hollow. Court will hang me, but it'll hang her too. Lydia looked down at him, calm as stone. Maybe, but at least I'll walk in free. The deputies dragged Banner to his feet, shoving him toward the horses. He stumbled once, cursing under his breath. The rope cut deep into his wrists. The sheriff turned back to Lydia. You coming to Redwater with us? She glanced at Eli. His shirt was torn, his face pale under the bruises, but his eyes were steady, warm in a way she hadn't seen before. I'll ride in, she said quietly. Then I'm heading east. Dunn nodded and mounted his horse. Be dawn by the time we reach town. Folks will be talking about this for years. When they rode off, the prairie swallowed them whole. 5 riders and a legend in the making. Eli watched until they vanished beyond the hills. The silence that followed was heavy, full of ghosts. The ranch looked broken, half burned, half drowned, but it still stood. Smoke curled up from the roof, thin and gray. He turned toward the doorway. The floor inside was black with soot, but the table still stood, the same one where she'd cleaned her revolver, where she'd told him her truths. A small glint caught his eye, something left behind. He knelt and picked it up, a silver locket, dented, tarnished, and warm from the fire's heat. Inside, two faces, Lydia and her sister, smiling like the world hadn't yet turned cruel. Eli closed it and slipped it into his pocket. By the time the sun broke the horizon, the sky was clear again. The land steamed where the rain had hit it hardest. He saddled his horse slow, movements measured, like a man twice his age. His shoulder throbbed, but he didn't mind. Pain was proof he'd made it through. From the ridge, he could see Redwater faintly in the distance. The same dusty town that had whispered about him for years. Now, it would whisper about her. The wrong woman who stepped off the wagon. The one who brought down a gang. He mounted up, tipped his hat against the glare, and started toward town. As the horse moved, the storyteller's voice rose again. Gravel and memory mixed together. They say the rain that night washed more than blood off the prairie. It washed away lies, too. Some tell it that Lydia Hartwell rode east and became the law herself. Others claim she vanished into the hills, where no man could follow. But every soul in Redwater remembers the night the storm came, and how a rancher and a stranger stood against it. The wind picked up again, whistling through the grass like an old tune. And if you ride far enough west, the voice continues, you might still find Eli McGraw's ranch, half burned, half rebuilt, standing quiet under the sun. Folks say on certain nights, when thunder rolls low and the sky burns red, you can hear a woman's voice on the wind, soft, steady, calling a man's name that history near forgot. The horizon glowed gold, the land stretching wide and endless. That's the tale of Redwater, the storyteller finishes. Of the wrong woman who came riding into a man's life and left behind a legend. And whether she's gone east, west, or into the stars, no one rightly knows. But her story, her justice, still rides on the wind.